Hello and welcome to Cyberside Chats. I am talking to you from Boston, Massachusetts. And here we have Matt jumping in again, as usual, from Missoula, Montana. Hi, Matt.
Howdy.
I'm excited to talk about JADEPUFFER today. This is a new development. Do you
This
want to
is.
give us a quick summary?
Yeah. So JADEPUFFER, as we read from a research company called Sysdig, is the first publicly documented ransomware that operates like end to end as an AI agent, which this has been kind of the boogeyman that we've been, talking about for a little while now. But it's the first time we've really seen something that had an impact or that potentially had an
It
impact.
is both the boogeyman and the inevitable future. This is an
Well, yeah.
agentic threat actor. Now, mind you, there is likely still a human involved, but the AI is handling the execution. So, reconnaissance, exploitation, lateral movement, and extortion are all driven by AI, according to the researchers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Kind of
this
scary,
is
though.
the future is here. I mean, this combines two of our favorite topic, ransomware and AI, into a very scary future.
It
Um,
did. What was interesting was how they figured out that this was AI generated. And I thought that was a unique research project they went through.
Yeah, how did they know? Like, because I think we've seen case after case where I'm very suspicious that AI is involved. But what was the smoking gun in this case?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things. First off, I mean, there were a ton of comments written into the code that were basically explaining what an LLM had done as it was reasoning through and building out the ransomware.
So,
Uh,
natural language was
yeah,
self explaining payloads, essentially.
yeah, exactly. And there was like 600 payloads that were included with this, which I thought was really interesting. But yeah, they contained natural language commentary basically, and we don't usually see that from normal threat actor code.
Yeah, AI
Also,
thinks out loud for
it does.
humans. That's like expensive and time consuming, and we don't want to do that.
Also, it made some pretty big mistakes when it came to actual execution of the ransomware. Like the Bitcoin address doesn't look like an actual Bitcoin address. I mean, it looks like what's in Bitcoin's developer documentation. So
To be
probably a
fair,
hallucination.
amateur newbie hackers also do that.
They could potentially, but I mean, we used to see wrong Bitcoin addresses being used in older variations of ransomware. That's not something I've seen in a while. This looks to me more like a hallucination, which is pretty common with machine generated code like this. The other thing was how it actually ran the encryption routine. So it was unrecoverable ransomware. It generated the AES keys so it could lock up all of the config records in this one particular system. It put them into basically your standard output once and then never recorded them or transmitted them. So even if somebody did follow the instructions on the ransom note it dropped and bought a decryptor, there's no way to recover any of the files that it actually encrypted.
You're not making me very scared of our AI threat actor here. I mean, I would
Yeah.
argue this is what we used to see from amateur threat actors, where they would take a playbook and copy it, including the sample Bitcoin wallet address. They would write ransomware that couldn't be decrypted. I remember Karen, who is our chief ransomware officer, had to be tech support for the threat actor and actually help the threat actor do a test decryption so we could move forward and decrypt our clients' files. Back in the day when we were handling all these ransomware incidents.
I
Um,
remember that case.
yeah, so in some ways, these some of these newer, less mature AI models seem to be acting like amateur threat actors, which is not good. But there are also some other aspects of it which are scary. For example, a 31-second diagnose and fix loop is something that the researchers described. So they were trying to get an admin account on the system. It didn't work, and they corrected it. They rolled out a multi-step fix 31 seconds later. So that is too fast and too adaptive to be a human user.
Oh yeah,
And
that
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 just
makes your
doesn't bode
SLAs
well.
useless at that point.
Yeah, and it doesn't bode well for incident response in the future either. It means that you have less time to react when hackers are noisy or when they make mistakes because, boom, they might be on to the next thing.
Could be.
So let's talk a little bit more about how this attack actually worked. What were they targeting?
So it looks like they were exploiting a unauthenticated remote code execution vulnerability in Langflow, which is available on tons of Python-based web servers out there on the internet, even right now, and using that for that kind of initial access, and then escalating from there to the point where they could encrypt files.
So I think this is really important. Most folks out there may not be familiar with Langflow. It is essentially support for developers.
Hmm.
So if you're developing an application, it will help you do that. And I think this goes along with the trend that we're seeing right now of targeting our software supply chain. So you want to start thinking about, hey, asking your software development vendors or anybody that you work with or purchase software from, do you have any exposed servers on the internet? What is your patch policy? And what happened was once they were able to exploit this server, they targeted a connected database. So the idea is they're going to move laterally, they're going to escalate privileges, they're going to worm their way into your developers' systems, which is scary when you think about it.
Yeah, no, it really is. And the fact that they pivoted directly to like a MySQL backend and
Yes.
then ran the encryption on that server means that yeah, they were going for basically destruction.
Right. And weren't they actually encrypting the database field? Is that right?
Yeah, so they encrypted about 1,300 config records. So these are called Knockos config records. It's just naming conventions. It's database pathways. Basically, what they did was delete all of the things that tell all of the applications inside the environment how to run without actually deleting the source code or the binaries or anything else like that. So equally destructive. It would be a terrible thing to have happen to you. But they went in as a slightly different pathway than we would normally see, where a ransomware operator would basically try to lock up the entirety of the database.
Right. Well, and I think this whole thing, it's an attack that type that we've seen time and time again. The fact that it is AI perpetrating this is what's scary because this is the next phase.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember last August, we saw PromptLock. That was ESET. They flagged a malware sample on VirusTotal. They said, this is the first AI powered ransomware. And it turned out, no, it was actually an academic proof of concept from NYU Tandon. It was not functional outside a laboratory. So, like, boop, boop. A year later, though, we actually are seeing essentially AI powered ransomware. Now, again, this is not fully autonomous yet.
Yeah.
But that's where we're moving. I mean, last summer we were also seeing criminal gangs using Anthropic software. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, vibe hacking.
Yes, they put out that whole article that we actually talked about, and criminals were using Anthropic's products in order to commit extortion, and the ransom demands ranged from $75,000 to $500,000 or more. So
Mhm.
that was a clear example of where it was clear criminals are as interested in AI as legitimate operations.
Well, in
And
that one too,
now,
they
yeah.
they used the AI to like select what data they were actually going to steal. So they were creating a data product basically while they were in the environment using artificial intelligence to do that. And that's something that we've talked about before.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out because that's something that's often invisible to defenders. It might be the criminals steal a bunch of stuff and they're using AI on the back end to sort it out. So, what's novel about the JADEPUFFER case is that we actually get that window into some of the AI operations and the payloads that we're seeing and the natural language explanations. Because I think criminals have absolutely been using AI during the year, but a lot of times it is invisible, so we can't actually watch it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the use of AI in cybercrime, I mean, I think we all probably know what's happening, but it's really hard to determine whether or not there is AI in use in a lot of these either pieces of malware or these criminal operations, especially like large scale phishing operations. I mean, they could just have, someone who's really good at writing
Sudden-
emails or something
Suddenly,
like
they've
that.
recruited
Yeah.
a lot of, native English speakers to sit all day and write new emails. Yeah, I mean, it's likely that AI is in play, but we're not always seeing it. Other than advertised on the dark web, we do see that.
No, yeah. Yeah.
All right,
That's
so
common.
what can we learn from this case? Do you want to go first?
Yeah. So ask which one of your vendors and internal AI tools are internet facing and potentially unpatched. When we look at Langflow, I mean that one's been patched for a little while, and the fact that it's still out there like in droves is not a great security tool for a lot of organizations. I mean that means they're running in basically a vulnerable mode normally, and a lot of those
Yeah.
servers end up standing up being internet facing. So if you have AI tools, make sure that you're inventorying them, make sure that they're patched just like your servers and just like everything else, and make sure that people understand that there is a risk with these tools.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Langflow vulnerability has actually been out for over a year since April 2025. So you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Number two, remember to reset your incident response expectations. We have adversaries that may adapt in seconds, not
Right.
hours. And we need to start thinking about that as we update our incident response playbooks for AI and we start training our incident response teams.
Number three, we want to make sure that we're expanding our threat model, and we want to assume that we're going to be dealing with adaptive, competent attacks that can now come from a completely unsophisticated attacker. If somebody's using AI to code out a piece of malware, they don't necessarily have to have a ton of skill. And as we saw with the JADEPUFFER attack, I mean, it made mistakes and it turned into an unrecoverable, basically data wiping attack as opposed to actual ransomware.
Yeah, that's a
So
really
again,
good point.
just just be ready for that because I mean we've seen the skill floor already drop out pretty significantly over the last couple of years. This is just going to make it worse.
Yeah, I think you're right. Random people with no tech background are going to be using AI attack tools. Okay, finally, make AI driven attack scenarios part of your next tabletop exercise. And that way you can work through issues like who can authorize automated containment? What kind of containment do you want to happen automatically? Because again, AI is going to be attacking and adapting at machine speed. We're not
Yeah,
going to have the luxury of responding at human speed for much longer.
no, not for much longer.
Nope. All right. With that, thank you guys so much. Please tune in next week to Cyberside Chats, and we'll see you soon.